Good afternoon to you all our dear esteemed viewers. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Community Show. This week we are discussing a reflection on the 61 years of Uganda's independence. So joining me to discuss this topic is a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen who will help put perspective on the conversation and help us understand exactly what's going on. Briefly, I'll get to them so that they can introduce themselves. So to get to know them, and then we can begin the conversation. I'll begin the lady, Miss Cissy. Kindly come on board, say hello to the viewers, and let the viewers get you. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Drake. Hello, good afternoon, our viewers. I'm Cissy Mchala, as introduced by Drake. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Cissy. We're looking forward to having a very thrilling and wonderful discussion with you. Mr. GoodLuck, kindly come on board and let the viewers get to know you. Most welcome.
Good afternoon, viewers. I'm called GoodLuck Musinguzi, and I'll be glad to be taking part in this discussion.
All right, thank you. So I'll begin with you, GoodLuck. 61 years down the road, the conversation of how far has Uganda come will definitely be asked. And you being a journalist, I'm aware you cover or you hear from people on ground and even from experts a number of things. But before we begin the conversation or get into the nitty-gritties of what exactly this 61 years means to Uganda, just help us put into context the history, how far we have come 61 years down the road, to why exactly it's important or significant for us to say that, yes, we are celebrating independence 61 years down the road.
Very much, viewers. It's been 61 years when Uganda broke down the walls of the population, Africa, and even around the globe, where the citizens of the different geographical boundaries were clamoring or calling for, they wanted to rule themselves, they wanted to so that they can decide their countries. There is a way people were saying at the time that us being continuing to be under the colonialists, we will not advance. And they were saying that once you give us power, we will. And I can imagine the picture was so rosy. They painted the picture that was, it's like when you grow up and you want to start a family and you're like, I'll be the happiest. But as we got independence, notwithstanding the challenges that happened, and actually the small mistakes, not small mistakes, but the mistakes that were made at the time, the political decisions made at the time, for example, 1966, 1971, decided the next so many years that we are celebrating. That instead of us living the dream of that rosy picture, then we started pulling each other based on tribes, based on religion. And instead of building the Uganda that was going to be, envious of everyone, then now we ended up having a Uganda where everybody was saying, which part can I take? And in that division, that we have come a long way, that even up to now, you see that the scars are not going away, that many people still see themselves as their tribe, as their religion. Through appointments, these days, the debate that's on, that give us one of ours. How many of ours are in government? And for me, that picture, the 61 years, it seems, I don't know if we can go back and rewind 61 years ago. I don't know whether the current population would still go on to agitate for independence. Nevertheless, we have also to look at the almost 40 years of NRM, or when they started the war and changed quite a lot. In that is that we have come to be a nation, a country that does not really live the lucid dream, the same GDP with us. Talk of Korea. Today, where is South Korea? It is among the top 10 countries in the world. Where are we? We are still in the least developed countries. So it means that along the way, to the so many Uganda, to the so many millions, that their aspirations, that to those who came to power, to those who have the resources, to those who control these resources, they never helped them to live their dream. But nevertheless, when we fought and killed each other and maimed each other, maybe around 1986, then there is also that group of people that came, the NRM under President Museveni, where maybe some sanity after, wasting all the years. We have moved, though you still see that again. I don't know whether they say there is always a vicious cycle in revolutions. I don't know whether when President Yoweri Museveni has gone, whether we will be able to maintain this. Now, as I end on this, is that the patriotism that should have come when that flag was raised, is it something today when they are singing the national anthem? You find some people are walking, some people don't care, they don't mind, they don't put. Like even when you look at the world politics, you find that hate is now taking over. That as a person, as a journalist, I don't know. I cover the whole country. I go to Karamoja, West Nile, everywhere. I don't want to see any person in their tribes, in their religion. It doesn't build me. I have come to look for stories. I have come to work on stories that make us as a country feel good. That when we have soccer as a country, when we see those legs of the young guys who go out there to represent us, when they are running and they are carrying our flag, that for me, that one makes me who I am. But in the night, when people retrieve and go back to their homes, and then they start counting how many ministers, how many whatsoever. And for me, I think that it is a mixed feeling for me as a person, that as we celebrate 61 years, that we should have been maybe far much more than where we are, but also notwithstanding that we have had, for example, the COVID pandemic, that it will, that, countries had gone through world wars, that in the beginning of 2020, that we had COVID, which put the whole world to a standstill. How we get out of that, it is also going to be another thing. But also, remember, we also have world politics. Apparently, we have the Israeli-Palestine war going on. We have the Ukraine-Russian war going on. How Africa positions itself, how Uganda positions itself, it's another thing. But also when you go through Namanve and other industrial places, when you go and you see the contribution of the churches in terms of education and health, and then maybe you tend to say, maybe we have a future. But as I end on this particular one, I think we need also to separate the state and the government. That most times I think people think everything is government. But if we build state pillars that are so strong, we wouldn't be minding about government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. GoodLuck. That has been a very elaborate submission as an introduction, and your history has been shaky, and that alone has culminated into affecting our history, our leadership and our politics today. Which then now brings the gist of the matter, and welcome, Mashallah Cissy. Help us now begin and we unpack and get into the nitty-gritties of the conversation. So my question to you, Ms. Muchala Cissy, is in line of political stability and governance. From the submissions of Mr. Baku, you took a number of points, like there are a number of factors and issues that have affected our politics because of our weak foundation from independence. So the question to you therefore is, how has political stability or instability in Uganda impacted the country's over the years? And what are the key challenges and opportunities for good governance in Uganda? Muchala?
Yes, thank you so much, Drake, for this opportunity. I would like to talk about the impact of political stability or instability. However, before I go into that, we would like to look at the causes, like what exactly leads to political stability or instability. And for this particular case, in the case of Uganda, what have been the causes of political instability? Because you will agree with me, the effects of political stability are short-lived. I can say short-lived because in case of a politically unstable environment, all the stability impact will be erased away from the community. And in Uganda, political instability has usually come about because of, let me say, greed or struggle for power. For example, we've had the Konyi War in northern Uganda. Konyi has struggled for a very long time in northern Uganda, and it has impacted the people of northern Uganda. And actually, Uganda at large, including areas surrounding Uganda in northern Uganda. The reason has been his need to rule Uganda, but was he really capable? Like if you're going to rule people and then you start by killing quite a lot of people, your own people in fact, like what kind of leader can we really call you? In this particular case. And then we go to the effect of this war to northern Uganda and Uganda at large. It has affected the mental health of people, especially the people from northern Uganda. I will speak from experience. I studied from Gulu University for my bachelor's degree. And by the time I was there, Gulu was, northern Uganda was recovering. It was just recovering from the war, the physical brutality of Konyi and his men. And if we are to look at the effects of mental health in this particular case, it will affect one's ability to believe in themselves. And then at the end of the day, this person will not be able to pursue as much as he or she would have aspired. Then we shall go to the physical brutality that was done by this rebel leader, Konyi. We look at the various rape cases, like crimes against humanity, especially against women. We realize that many women were raped and many young girls were made mothers, which actually affected their ability to pursue the future that they would have actually achieved had they not been taken through that. And then we shall also look at the children rebels or child soldiers that were taken on by the rebels. And this majorly, it affected northern Uganda by creating a vast area of protective areas, or we call them camps. And in a camp, there are very many humane things that happen. For example, feeding, malnutrition was at a very, very high rate because people were not feeding well, especially children below the ages of 5. And then number 2, children were not accessing quality education because it was maybe very far away, or they were scared of leaving the protected areas in fear of the rebels and the rebel activities. When we continue to look at the effect of political instability, it also affects the economy of the country. For example, in an area where animals are swept, are killed, and people are killed, productivity of that particular area and then trade of that particular area declines. So at the end of the day, it affects the entire economy in Uganda and the surrounding areas. However, I can look at the political instability effect of funding. Regardless of the bad effects of this particular crisis or conflict, Uganda had access to a vast resource of international funding where relief aid was mainly channeled to northern Uganda. In one way or the other, we cannot compensate for the people who died, but we are glad to say that a lot has been done to help these people recover. And at the end of the day, it helps in building the economy, reviving, trying actually, not really doing it, but trying to revive the economy that was dilapidated during the crisis. And then we can also look at the education sector. The education sector will be affected. For example, future professors, future medical doctors were all swept away or were left orphans with no one to care for them. So at the end of the day, these children may not have the ability to access high quality education. And if I can wind up on this particular one, our environment was really affected. For example, I'm using particularly the war in northern Uganda because it lasted for a long period of time. We look at bushes that were burnt down, and then the displacement of people actually led to the deforestation in efforts to resettle the displaced people of northern Uganda as a result of the particular war in northern Uganda. I can talk about that and that, but kindly allow me end with tourism. The conflict really affected the tourism of Uganda, whereby, let me say, international tourists, people who are not nationals, even nationals themselves, they found it very hard to go into northern Uganda. For example, at one time when I was going to school, we were escorted by the army. So like at the end of the day, you do not break even if you have to escort every person with the army. Actually, like it increases the production costs of tourism, which ends up affecting the industry, the tourism industry. Now, to the second question that you actually asked about good governance in Uganda, I would like to talk about, first of all, the pillars and what is good governance in its particular place. Good governance involves making laws in very transparent, governing people or that society transparently and following the rule of law. And its major pillars include accountability, transparency, and rule of law. We look at equitability and access to basic services in the country. I would like to say that initially we had quite a lot of good governance in Uganda. For example, a lot of court cases were being aired live on air. And one would wonder why right now many of these cases are decided without actually proper hearing. And why is it that some of this is actually classified information? Like it should be transparent enough for the public to actually accept or disagree or contribute to the ruling of whatever is happening, such that they are in the know of what is happening in the country. And still about good governance in Uganda, it calls for participatory involvement, that citizens have to be involved in decision making in one way or another, because they are the grassroots soldiers of the country. However, in some cases, we shall find that a lot of things are happening, and actually they happen from top down. Like decisions are made from above, and then citizens just receive whatever it is that is happening. So at the end of the day, we realize that these are challenges. And then the consensus. How many times have citizens agreed to do something? When we look at the taxation, when we look at the education system, like a lot of things are happening with the very few people deciding for this particular country. Thank you so much, Drake.
Thank you. That has been a very wonderful submission. And what I pick from your submission from the beginning of showing us how political instability in Uganda is impacting the country's progress, you pick up insurgency that happened in Uganda for a period of 2 decades. That's a period of 20 years. And on you banking on that event that happened, that unfortunate event that happened in northern Uganda, you highlight that greed or struggle for power led to that. And that had numerous factors that stagnated Uganda's progress. First and foremost, you highlight the fact that this affected the mental health of the people in the region. We could not help the people in the region to progress moving forward. But also you highlight the fact that, see, when people are displaced, it means people are going to be in camps, and there is, first of all, there's poor feeding in these camps, there is lack of access to quality education. You also talk about the economic impact that this war had on Uganda, but also on northern Uganda. You highlight the issue to do with education being gravely affected, the environmental impact that this war had on the progress in Uganda, and then you mentioned that tourism was greatly affected. And on the issue of these challenges and opportunities for governance in Uganda, you started giving us the principles of governance, which is participation, accountability, non-discrimination, empowerment, and respect for the rule of law, which leaves us lagging on a number of questions whether we actually have good governance in Uganda 61 years down the road. Which then leads me to invite Mr. GoodLuck. That my sister Cissy highlighted to do with growth. I want us to just begin a conversation on economic development. 61 years down the road, we are still gravely dependent on aid. We are gravely dependent on debt. So the question to you therefore is, what are the major drivers of Uganda's economy and how have they evolved over the years? But then, what role does foreign investment also play in Uganda's economic future? Good luck.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good luck. Looks like Good Luck is having difficult. I'm going to request Good Luck to kindly mute, and then maybe once there's Good Luck, you there?
Talking to about, there are a few Ugandans who pay the taxes.
It looks like Good Luck has dropped off. Cissy, let's just keep the conversation now going. When Good Luck gets back, I'll get back to him. But let us, as Good Luck comes back on board, I will pick up the conversation from the aspect to do with economic development. Let's just pick up the conversation. Good Luck will find us along the way as this internet stabilizes. Cissy, you highlight very key and important issues in the discussion. Speaking of social development and inequality, 61 years down the road, there's a question of access to quality education. There's a question of access to good health services in the country. So the question to you therefore is, how has access to education and healthcare improved in Uganda since independence? Has it even improved? Second question is, what are the key factors contributing to income inequality and how can they be addressed? Cissy.
Oh, thank you so much, Drake. I will start with health and education in Uganda. Kindly allow me express my disappointment because I do not see an improvement as such. Yes, our completion rate have improved, our enrollment rates have improved, but the quality of education that is being offered has a lot to answer. For example, in the late 1990s, UPE was introduced in Uganda. But today, someone would wonder the reason as to why UPE was actually brought in Uganda. Because like if you brought two children, one coming from the rural areas of Uganda and one coming from maybe the suburb, let me say central Uganda, which is Buganda. You put these two children together to debate on an issue, actually, you will be very disappointed, starting with the English expression and a lot of things. So education has not improved in Uganda as such, although a number of schools have been brought up, actually mushrooming of schools. I would like to say the worst thing that happened to the Ugandan education was the privatization of this particular sector. Why did we bring in private private actors in something that is core to the development, to the growth, to the sustainability of the country. Because at the end of the day, private actors are looking for profits, they are looking for money. So like a lot has to be standardized. If education in Uganda is to take the right course, then quite a lot of things have to be done. Comparing a lot of things that happened maybe during the previous regimes and this particular one, education has been crippled, I can say. And in addition to that, I'd like to look at how a child is raised. Most of the time, this child is between home and school. And at the end of the day, this child has not been helped to face real life issues. This child at school is being trained to cram, memorize, and pass exams. Unlike training this child for real life issues, for example, Uganda has recently legalized contraceptives for a 15-year-old girl. I'm wondering if they have done that, why don't we legalize working? Why don't we try to make a 15-year-old child in vacation or in holiday go for work? Maybe one, this will improve this child's experience, because in most cases, when you're looking for a job, they'll ask for experience. So like if this child has started working at 15, by the time they're 20, they have experience in a particular field. Then number two, our education system is training people to seek for jobs. And yet these particular people, including you, Drake, you have a passion. Did you pursue your passion? Maybe your passion is hands-on and it would have helped you fetch money. Maybe it would have helped you earn an income from your neighbor. But our education system has prepared us to look for jobs. That is why we realize that a lot of youths in Uganda are running away from Uganda. They are educated, maybe some of them even have postgraduate education, but they are seeking greener pastures elsewhere. Why didn't we prepare them to look for greener pastures here? Because we have all the resources that we need in Uganda, you know? So our education system is dilapidated. Then number two, pardon my cock in the background, Drake. Number two is the health sector. Although the health sector has tried to improve in a way of maybe like the distribution of essential medicines and healthcare services and products, a lot needs to be done, especially in public healthcare centers. Yes, compared to education, health is a little bit somewhere, because like at least someone can access medicine, even if it is to pay. But are we supposed to actually pay for these medicines? Can't we afford at least to provide them? Because I know we can. Uganda is a very rich country and I know we can. But we have lost it at some point where it has also been privatized, like the education system, to private actors whose main goal is maximize profits, regardless of how this is actually done, including stealing medicines from public centers to private sectors, to private managed healthy facilities. Kindly remind me, Drake, of my second question.
The second question is, what are the key factors contributing to income inequality and how can they be addressed?
Yes, thank you so much. The first one was our first case, which is education. Our education is not equitable. Like I said in the beginning, the teaching or the training of a rural child is a little different from that of a town or an urban child. At the end of the day, the rural child is not prepared to compete favorably with the child in the urban areas. Number two, our tenure system, our land tenure system in Uganda is actually also a cause of income inequalities. For example, you will find one person owning a large chunk of land and not doing anything with that land, yet a family with children who can actually dig and maybe cultivate and maybe get money from the yields has a very small piece of land. So at the end of the day, there will be income inequalities in one way or another. Then the other one is our employment system or employment policies. And then these are worsened by nepotism and corruption in the country, where someone who has some money is able actually to pay for a job which was not the case in the previous regimes. I remember the times when my father graduated, one was very assured of getting a job, regardless of where they were coming from. Unlike today, where, pardon me to say, but jobs are offered depending on technical know-how, not technical know-how. And at the end of the day, these are the people who are going to worsen the corruption, the tribalism, because he did not really earn this job. He was just sure of getting it because maybe my relative is somewhere. And the people who actually have the capability to perform at these particular jobs are left behind, leaving them in worse economical situations than their counterparts who can pay for jobs. Number three are the fiscal policies of the country. Our fiscal policies are kind of favoring those who have, and they are squeezing even the little out of the haves nots. For example, when you're buying stuff in large quantities, you're likely to get them at a relatively less rate compared to someone who is buying a one by one. Then number two, our fiscal policies also kind of favor particular people, let me say foreigners, unlike our people from Uganda. So at the end of the day, the foreigners are going to be more better off than the netizens of Uganda. Then the other cause of inequalities is the distribution of resources, the inequitable distribution of resources, be it financial, technical, or human resource. And this one looks, we look at, for example, the distribution in Uganda, central Uganda is very populated with quite a lot of facilities that can help in creating jobs, unlike other places. So at the end of the day, the people in central Uganda will be a little better than their counterparts in places where there are no industries, no factories, no schools, and no other recreation facilities. Then we can look at the health of people. Someone who is sickly is likely to have challenges economically because all the monies they earn are likely to go into treating themselves, and they will be not able to save and and earn to improve their economical situations. The other cause of economical inequalities in the country include, but are not limited to, our taxation policies, which tax people earning less more than the people who earn more. At the end of the day, the gap is actually going to grow wider between the haves and haves not. Thank you so much, Drake.
Thank you very much, Cissy. That has again been a very wonderful and detailed submission on trying to put into context the social development and inequality. You discussing the question of how has access to education and health in Uganda since independence. You bring up that first of all, education hasn't in fact there's been access to the quality of education provided is poor because of the major contributor to this poor quality education is privatization of education, which is also similar to healthcare. You said access to healthcare, but the privatization of healthcare has greatly hindered access for people to have this health, to have this facility. But highlight the number of causes of inequality in Uganda today, from the education system that is a lanternal system, the employment policies which favor the rich and doesn't favor the poor, the distribution of resources, and lastly, people's health. Let's now get back to Mr. GoodLuck. GoodLuck, as earlier on you had technical glitches, but I hope right now it's sorted. The question to you earlier was the line of economic development, and maybe when you're done talking about economic development, I will engage you on infrastructure and technology. But let's first address economic development. So the question to you, therefore, is what are the major drivers of Uganda's economy and how have they evolved over time? But then two, what role does foreign investment play in Uganda's economic future? GoodLuck.
As I had started on, I said economics is about the contribution of every person who is in that country. And when we had independence, we were banking on these cash crops, coffee, cotton, tea, and all these other things that we were trying to sell out there to get the money and sustain our development. But these days, when 61 years after independence, is that every other person who goes to the market makes a contribution to the economic development of the country. Though there is a distinction that sometimes people think that there's this other 3 million people we talk of directly who contribute to large tax, who contribute to the $25 trillion, 25 trillion shillings that Uganda Revenue Authority will be looking for each year in order to fund the budget. But also remember that every other time you go to buy, when you buy data, when you buy fuel, when you go to the market and do what, you are making a contribution to the economic development of the country. And I can say that when the politics is good, when there is no fighting, just know that whenever people wake up every day, some go to offices, some are going to the gardens, some are going to the garages, some are going to the hospitals, others are going to the school. When you look at all that, that is economic development. So we have come a long way. As my colleague has said, that when you come to the central Uganda, that there is quite a lot of economic activity that is going on. You have the major airport remember, we are a landlocked country, that one affects us. But in central Uganda, that's why we have the major airport, which brings in almost 5,000 people on a daily, in and out. We have our borders out there, which are operational. There are over 40 outlets that connect us to these different countries. So Ugandans every day wake up to make a contribution. But also there has also been an argument that, remember that our economy is peasantry. It is much more based on producing for eating. Not what the president uses. He says the politics of a cheetah, where you just you go to your garden, whatever you're producing, you're thinking of consuming it, but you're not taking it to the market. So Uganda, the government and all of us should be able to make sure that we work to go to the market, because every other time there is an exchange of money and other resources, then you are building the economy. Now, the contribution of foreign aid is that definitely, if you go at your home, at the level of the home, if I want to build a house, if I want to buy land, if I want to buy a car, if I want to take children to school, and I'm not able to meet the costs of what is before me at the time, what do? You go to the lenders. So even countries go out to look source for money, either through loans or through attracting foreign investors. They do make a very big contribution. And when they come here and somebody has built a factory, like the president has been saying, definitely that will contribute to our GDP. For example, let me give you an example. When you go to Eastern DRC, our trade between Uganda and just Eastern DRC is over 1.5 billion US dollars. So when you go, I have had an opportunity as a journalist to go and cover the war in Eastern DRC. You find from the liquor, talk of Uganda warrants and all these other things, talk of food, even money, even the exchange of the exchange of resources, they use Ugandan money. So definitely it means that when you have a factory in Kampala, in Namamve, in Mukono, and all these other industrial parks that are being set up in the different regions, when they produce those products, if they cannot be consumed here in the country alone, they have to be exported to our neighbors. So that means that's how we have to grow our economy. While we are dealing with the factories and all these things that that end up forming our GDP and our national growth, we must make sure that as a country that everybody now, when we come to parish development model, which is the latest program that has been added on in the country, is that currently the program that is running is the parish development model. They are trying to make sure that at the parish level, for example, in Kabale, where I come from a parish called Rushachi. I come from a village called Omwibali. Now, in our parish, all the 100 people have been able to access 1 million per person. And in my village, there are almost 20 people who received money. And when I was talking to those who received, they told me they are in Pigale, they are in goat rearing, and they are trying really to make sure that now they buy young small goats and maybe feed them, and so that when they go to the market, they are able to earn. And for me, that is the thing that even we find most times Ugandans complaining.
Excuse me, GoodLuck. I just want us now to first drive the conversation to infrastructure and technology, relating it to the point that you just highlighted. Considering the fact that Alan dropped off, and I would like you to hint on infrastructure and technology. So the question to you is, how has infrastructure development contributed to Uganda's growth, maybe in line with the point that you're highlighting? Thank you.
Thank you very much. When we talk about infrastructure, we can talk about roads, we can talk about schools, airports, and all these other things that have been built along the way. Yes, we have come a long way. We still need more. First of all, you remember that our governance has decentralized some of the infrastructure maintenance. For example, the roads, you find that the districts have also been given an opportunity. In this budget, each district has been given 1 billion shillings to maintain their roads. But I agree with you that when infrastructure is made very well, it contributes to the economic development. Talk about technology. I love technology, and I'm in that space. And that's why even we are here, that we are not able to be in one studio. We are able to be far away from each other and be able to communicate. Technology-wise, we are not very far away. The telecommunications, if you remember in the 2000s, I used a 772 number, which I received in 1999. I was working with Data Monitor, and Data Monitor bought for me a phone, and I started to communicate from that time. I remember that time we used to subscribe, the subscription was 18,000 per month, and you needed to buy airtime of 10,000 before you communicate. And indeed, at the time, few people were able to manage to, few people would buy a phone. It was very, very expensive. But along the way, the phones are very cheap. And also the applications that have revolutionized the way we work. For example, being able to send money. If you have heard that mobile money across the country, apparently every day we transact towards almost 600 billion Uganda shillings using phones. Technology has come, and the young people, they should be helped to look at technology as the new land. If our forefathers were looking at land to develop in the 60s, that this time around, that you don't need a post office number. You need to have an address or via technology. You can be able to develop different applications that can be able to help you sell, do your trade with the others. you can communicate with others, you can, we have seen the musicians, that all these other sectors are being incorporated in the technology. So definitely after 61 years, that the children who were born 60 years ago and the children who are born today, as the technology craze takes over, that they are so different, that they are two worlds apart. When I compare ourselves to other countries, are we left behind? Not. We are not. I remember when the BlackBerry was coming, we were hosting the Chogam. The BlackBerry was here. The iPhone is here. That everything is here. Maybe talk about the prices, the data, but as they laid the national backbone, NITA Uganda, as they continue to work on the prices, I hope that we will be able to use technology and harness it very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck. That has been a very powerful submission and wonderful that Uganda has also not been left so much behind on technological grounds. But I think there is room for improvement, in my opinion, though. There are a number of things that the government needs to see to it that for us to progress, things to do with the cost of data is very expensive. And I think moving forward with a young generation, with a young population, they should ought to reduce that for the young population to embrace tech and move forward. Which then brings me to ask Cissy a question in line of youth and education. The question to you is, how are Ugandan youth shaping the future of the country, and what challenges do they face? 2, what reforms are needed in the education system to prepare youth for the future job market? Cissy, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Drake. Looking at the Ugandan youth, according to our constitution, a youth is someone between the ages of 18 and 30. And in Uganda, we realize they make the biggest percentage of this country, with most of them being either in school or having graduated somewhere with something. However, their influence or impact in the future of this country is actually, I can say, questionable. Most youths, I would like to say, have not been empowered. If you look around, they have not been prepared for the future. So if someone has not been prepared for the future, how would we expect this particular person to prepare the future or shape the future in this particular case? For example, most of the youth I'm talking about are unemployed, despite having qualified with a graduate or a postgraduate qualification. Some of them are very unable to access jobs because of one reason or another. One of them being the unequal distribution of resources. For example, we realize that some places have resources and some places don't have resources. So at the end of the day, we find that the youths from places with limited resources, economic or natural, find issues finding jobs. And if someone is unemployed, this person is only prepared for today. They do not see the wood for the future, you know? So at the end of the day, this youth will not be able to prepare the future in any particular way. And those few who have been able to find jobs, I would like to say, are struggling with quite a huge rate of dependence. Many people, like including some of us here today in this discussion, have dependents at a tender age. Maybe by 18, someone is already having dependents. So how can this particular person shape the future when they're actually living for now? You know, so the future is quite not clear, if I can say. Although they keep telling us it is secured, I reserve my comment on that. And youths are facing quite a lot of challenges. One of them is unemployment, and then number two, access to public services like education. Some youths have studied properly, but they cannot access higher education. And even if they access the education, I would like to say it has not benefited them. It has not prepared them for the future, because our education system we are still basing on an education system of the 1960s, where Uganda had only a population of 15 million people. Today, we are almost 49 million people. We are actually over 49 million people, but we are depending on an education system of 1960. I would like to say, I would like to give a thanks and respect where it is due. The new reforms in the education system, especially the one that incorporates practical sessions, is likely maybe to improve, but one would really wonder what happens at senior 6 for an arts child. Like, are they going to continue being practical? Like, how practical is it going to be? So this calls for a reform that is transformational, like from a tender age. Let's begin with the children from, like, it doesn't make sense for one to study for 16 years and they're not able to produce anything, you know? So me, I would advocate for transformational policies and reforms that empower a child right from maybe primary. And why do we even have nursery? I'm in agreement with the First Lady. Nursery is something that is causing us a lot of, let me say, we are spending a lot of resources on it, and yet it does not, in my opinion, contribute to one's being in future. Like, what do children get after nursery graduation? And again, what do we get after P7 graduation, after senior 4? So at the end of the day, someone is prepared for something that is long gone. We need to focus on reforms that are transformational, that empower a child to use what they have where they are. For example, in Busoga, we have sugar canes. Why don't we train our children, especially primary and secondary children in holidays, to produce maybe sugarcane juice? Because that is the resource we have. If we really wanted a youth to impact the future positively, we would empower them by skilling them to produce sugarcane juice, and then start from there to add value on the sugarcane instead of selling it to someone who is actually not even a foreigner. I'm so much a Bobo person, but a lot of things are against our Bobo. Then the reforms I talked about, transformational. Our education systems need to be transformational right from primary. Number one, we can do without nursery. Number two, at the end of P7, someone should be able to produce something. The same applies to senior 4. And why do we need senior 6 in the first place? You know, I think we have a challenge there. So our reforms need to be based on baseline data, and you will find that quite a lot has to be done. Thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you very much, Cissy. You highlight very key pertinent issues. I'm particularly interested in what you said, that if someone is our young people are not prepared for the future, they're rather just prepared for today. It's very true, but very unfortunate that that's the reality. But we cannot have this conversation without having a conversation on environmental sustainability. As we advocate that we have a transformation in our education system, we advocate for employment, which means we advocate for development and industrialization. Then also there's need to call for environmental sustainability. Let me get to you, Mr. GoodLuck, as we approach towards the end of our conversation. Environmental sustainability. The question too is, what are the environmental challenges facing Uganda, and how can sustainable development be achieved? GoodLuck? Yes.
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I think the environment has taught us that it is part of us, that we destroy it or we keep it for the good of ourselves. But when we go for it, we have seen the environment fight back. For example, this also goes back, for example, the energy sources we use, that as the population points towards the 50 million mark, that what are we going to do in order to make sure that we don't have people, just depending on charcoal. The forest cover has been dwindling. We are not planting more forests. I saw a bank in our country that is trying to plant 1 million trees. That one is a good one. That when we go for our wetlands, I myself, my family in Kabale will be handing over a big wetland we have used for the last 40 years. It's like by 2026 our lease will be over and is not going to be renewed, and we are going to bring back the wetland the way it is, and we hope once it regenerates it will help to keep our environment. For example, in Kigezi they introduced the eucalyptus tree. A eucalyptus tree is something when you put it in the ground where there is water, there is a way it sucks out water so fast, it grows so fast, it helps the community to get firewood and timber, but it is very disastrous to the environment. For example, so when I go back to our place in Kigezi, you find that in the dry season, you find most of the communities now go to the wetlands. That's where they can farm from. That's where they can put the Irish potatoes, and then they go back to the uplands around August 15th. But that one is becoming detrimental now. When the rains come, there is a time when it was so bad that even we had most of the families, have their loved ones, reclaimed because the intensity of water coming from the uphills, the terraces are being tampered with. Now, when you come to central Uganda, no, let me start with northern Uganda. Now there's an executive order banning of charcoal. It's so it's quite. I recently saw mingling storage houses as if it is like bread falling down. So for me, I have a feeling that yes, the environment, tamper with it, it is going badly. You see what is happening in other countries. Now we celebrate 60 years of independence. There's a neighboring country that has really forced people to plant trees. That when you go to cut area leaders, like the local leaders here, maybe Chairman LC1. But here we are cutting, we are not putting back. I myself as a person, for the last almost 7 or 10 years, I don't use charcoal, I don't use firewood. I have said that the little man I have, I always use gas, so at least I'm not part of those who are destroying the environment. So if those who are able can take on to the gas, and of course there's the national policy that's coming, that even as they build the pipeline that would be taking the crude oil to the coast, there is a plan that is being talked about. Can they build another pipeline that now brings the gas back to Uganda so that we are able to save our environment? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good luck. I'll just get to you quickly, then we can have your concluding remarks, and I'll get back to Cissy and call it off and call it a conversation. It's been wonderful. So good luck. Your concluding remarks and recommendations, maybe as Uganda makes 62 next year, what we need to do better, what can we do as citizens, what the government must do, and maybe your call out to the citizens on what we can do together collectively. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Every year we have an opportunity to go through a budget cycle. And as we speak, the budget cycle is beginning. But I can tell you, most of our people, most Ugandans, let's not keep talking. Let's walk the talk. But when we just keep talking and we don't participate in changing most of the things, we will not be helping ourselves. For example, the biggest business person, the biggest business entity is government. Now, when they read the budget, the question that should be disturbing everyone is that how much business can I do with this government? But we have taken it to the periphery. We are more of criticizing than participating. I call upon each citizen that remember the budget cycle that it is taking place in your districts. people are talking about what are the challenges in your area. Is it a road? Is it a school? Is it a health center? Can you go and make a contribution of your ideas through your counselors, through your leaders, so that, when they are going to distribute resources as we celebrate the next year, the next independence, that maybe your school, your bridge was fixed. I'm very happy that where I stay, I stay on a hill called Chihumuro in Kavale, that they fixed a bridge which has reduced my journey by almost a half. And when I'm driving through this bridge and I'm going back home, you don't know how much smiles I have. I used to take around, go around the hill, but now I have a choice. So every other time, as in the education sector, make sure that you participate in the budget cycle. Let your voice be heard through your leaders. But otherwise, when we keep throwing stones at each other, and keep saying, nothing will ever change, the budget will come, it will be distributed, you'll not be part of it. Be part of that budget, be part of the decision making, but also make sure you do something. Have you planted some trees? And I would even start with my colleagues that when we go up country, and at least around 100 trees, are we able to do self-help projects? Are we in the holidays? Are we able to see those children who roam our areas? Are we able to be part of, like the way society used to say, that the education of the children in our area is part of us? Are you making a contribution? Are you part of Rotary? Are you able to contribute so that maybe Rotary can be able to fix the water sources in some areas? So when we see the Karamajong children on Kampala streets, what are we able to do? So every year we have an opportunity to make a contribution. And me as a journalist, every other time I see something that is not right, I tend to reach policy makers. And maybe I have seen a few things being changed, and kudos to me. And I will say that as we move on in these 61 years, that I'll be able, my focus is mostly on health. And for example, my colleague has talked of the 15-year policy on family planning, on contraceptives. And I think it's not true that it's not yet passed. But I think the debate comes with the teenage pregnancies, the teenagers who are now mothers. The question is, the law is not fair. When a 15-year-old comes when they are pregnant, and these are things that confront us, what do you do? So my contribution to health, to safe motherhood as a writer, will be on and on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good luck, and we're very happy that you joined us today in this wonderful conversation. Mushala Cissy, let's have your concluding remarks.
Yes, thank you so much, Greg, and thanks so much to my colleague, GoodLuck. Like you said, we have to be a part of the change that we want to see in future. For example, in managing the issues of the environment, let us take it upon ourselves, especially when we are in vehicles, even at home, to prevent or to guide children against littering. It is very unfortunate that you sit in a public transport means and you see an adult throw a bottle through the window. Like, you really wonder what a generation that we are actually making and grooming. Number two, in the recent past, a child in Africa was being raised by the entire community. It is unfortunate today that maybe our family systems have changed or values are actually changing, but we need to go back to our roots, because then we produced more round citizens who had respect and not fear. Unlike today, where we are training children to have fear instead of respect. Then the third one is to engage, especially children during holidays. Children have a passion. Every child has a talent. kindly engage that child. For example, I have a holiday maker who is very much interested in making charcoal briquettes. And as you all know, this is an alternative actually to cooking using gas and charcoal and electricity, which are actually more expensive, especially for low-income earners in Uganda. They make the biggest percentage in this country. So like if a youth like this is interested in making something like that, I know it's it's very dirty actually. She gets her hands really dirty, but it means that she's also getting very clean money out of it. Let us engage the youths, especially in holidays, and let us take it upon ourselves, like how my colleague said, plant trees. If we can each plant a tree for each person we love, Uganda would be so, so green and a happy place for our children and grandchildren. Then the other thing is using resources sustainably. I recently went to one of the major, really sought hospitals in Uganda, and I was very disappointed in the way they use water. Like when you flush, chances are high you're flushing over 20 liters of water. I actually reached out to their managers and I'm like, you people, will your grandchildren really have water if you use water like this? You know, so let us use resources sustainably. Most of us can harvest water. I know we can save the environment through these very small acts. But if many people do these small acts, at the end of the day, we shall have contributed to a sustainable environment, especially for our children and grandchildren. Yes, thank you, Civic Space TV. Thank you, Drake, Monica, and my colleague, GoodLuck. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cissy. Thank you very much. Good luck for the wonderful conversation you put today and celebrating Uganda's birthday of 61 years of independence. It's been very wonderful having you all on the show. My name is Douglas Onen. I've been your host and moderator for today. Otherwise, continue watching Civic Space TV and stay with us for another episode next week. Otherwise, it's a good afternoon from me and a good week to you all. Bye-bye.